Hello and welcome everyone. As you slowly start to trickle in, you will notice that you entered with your mics muted and your cameras off. We do ask that you keep it this way for the duration of the presentation. This is just to ensure we don't stress Zoom out too much. My name is Maria Bushman. I'm a student recruiting specialist with the School of Business and Media. And before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that BCIT campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. With me today, I have the fantastic Linda Matsuba and Robin Day. And we're going to start off, and Robin Day is our Associate Dean of the Accounting, Finance, and Insurance Programs. Linda is our librarian with many, many years of knowledge. She's been with BCIT Library for 30 years, so we're all excited to hear what she has to say. A quick reminder that this session is being recorded and will be available on the BCIT webpage as well as the BCIT YouTube. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat. We'll try to answer them as best as we can in the chat. And if not, we will answer them live after the presentation. So without further ado, I will pass it on to Linda.
Thank you, Maria. So welcome to the library. I'm going to talk briefly about the library website, services offered, research guides, an example of a database search, and something called the APA citation tools. Now on the page, you'll see the pictures of the three business librarians. I look after marketing, broadcast, and digital arts. Deirdre Grace looks after operations management, and Jeff Verbeen looks after everything else, business administration, accounting, the graduate program. Okay. So on the bottom right corner, there's the website for the URL for the library, and we can help you in three basic ways. We help with research. For example, when the library is open, we do have a desk, and a librarian or a library technician will sit there. We have live chat through the Ask Away service and email chat through the eBrarian service. The other thing we do is we help with tutoring. Now we hire a lot of peer tutors. They are senior students who have taken courses, and they sort of are aware of what you are facing at BCIT and the kinds of questions you're asked and the assignments you're given by the instructors. And that's done in the Learning Commons. Now the Learning Commons, during the COVID, we were available through Zoom, but when we're coming back to school in September, we're going to do partial Zoom and partial in-person tutoring. Another part of the tutoring is the Writing Center, and the Writing Center is really awesome because if you do an assignment and, for example, you do an essay and you want some feedback on your essay, they will look at it, sort of look through the general structure, making sure you're commenting on your grammar and discussing some of how you're doing your citations. A third area of the library is our project support, and we have an area called MediaWorks. MediaWorks is 3 people, and they are so helpful. If, for example, you have problems with one of the software you're using, they'll help you. They'll give you suggestions there. They also have really tremendous equipment. For example, they have a laminator. The laminator they'll do free, and they only charge you for the material that they use. They also do a lot of 3D printing, and they'll also guide you in how you could learn how to do 3D printing. Now, this is the front page for the library on the far left-hand side, and you'll see a search box in red. It's called First Search. Well, think of it as Google for the library. All you have to do is type in a keyword or a phrase, and you will hit the enter button, and then you could pull up information that we have in the library. This is information that's unique to the library and not necessarily found during an internet search. So on the right-hand side, I've done a search on organizational culture, and you'll see that we have over just under 2,000 newspaper articles, over 1,000 journal articles, and under 1,000 books and ebooks. So these are items that are very useful in doing your assignments. Now, if you do use any, we also do research guides, and over in the middle of the page are the 15 guides for the School of Business, and there is one for accounting, business admin, operations management, and the market research, which is the one I've done. On the right-hand side is an example of a research guide for business administration, and this is done by Jeff, and each tab across the page are separate pages. So we're in the getting started page, but you can click on other tabs and get more information. So it's invaluable for starting to do your research. Now here is a example of one of the business databases. We have a database called Business Source Complete, and the search that I did was cell phones and Canada, and what we found is many results, and this is one example, is a market research profile that is dated 2020, and it's about just over 40 pages long. Now this kind of research or report is invaluable, because if you were to find it on the internet, they won't allow you to get into the report. They might charge you like a couple $100 or even sometimes over $1,000 for some of the reports that we have in our databases. Now the databases have reports, they have articles from journals, they have books, even ebooks, and it can be extremely helpful for doing your assignments. This material is often, as I said, not available on the internet. Now, if you were to use any material, whether you're using an internet website, you're doing an interview, or else you found an article in our database, an ebook or a book or a report, you need to cite it or refer to it in 2 places in your assignment. And you cite it within your assignment and at the end of your assignment. Now, this is called citations or citing, and at BCIT School of Business, we primarily use the American Psychological Association or APA style. Here is an example on the right-hand side of the APA citation, which is the guide that Deirdre and I have created, and then the APA style guide for business sources. Now, the blue one is the general guide, and the yellow one is the business sources. Now, why it is so useful is that the APA style guide, the blue one, gives sort of general information about how to do citing, and then the yellow one has examples from each of the different databases. On the right-hand side, you'll see that I've done one for Business Source Complete, and I've done a country report and a SWOT analysis. So all those things are really, like, when you start working with your assignments, you always need to refer to any item that you use in your assignments. Okay, so are there any questions, Maria, in the chat box?
None that haven't been dealt with already, Linda.
Okay, okay, then perhaps I'll transfer it over to Robin now.
actually here, before we get over to Robin, we do have one asking about, is there librarians at downtown campus?
We don't have a librarian or a library at the downtown campus. However, you could easily ask a question using the Ask Away chat box and the eBrarian service, or phoning our reference desk in Burnaby.
Perfect. And Jovelyn's asking if there is a resource we can use to check for plagiarism.
Ah, that's a good one. I think that leads us into Robin's presentation.
That's actually a pretty good segue. Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Maria. Actually, I was just typing away about to answer a chat question from NK when suddenly Linda said, I'm going to throw it over to Robin, and I thought, I'm not ready. So anyways, just to address NK's question, talking about prerequisite courses, and this is specific to data analytics, but pretty much applies to all of our programs. We do prefer that students take the prerequisite courses in most cases, regardless of the prior knowledge that they might have. And I see questions like this fairly frequently about accounting, for example, where we have an accountant coming in from another country who has an accounting designation in their home country, and they want to work towards their Canadian CPA designation. And so they don't necessarily want to take those introductory accounting courses. And generally what we do is we refer them, and this is what I'll do for NK as well, we refer them to the program head of the program that they're interested in completing, so that they can make a connection with that program head and find out whether there's any important prerequisite knowledge that's included in those early courses that they may not have, even though they have a lot of experience, in this case, in data science and Python programming. So check with the program head. You should be able to find that information online on the website for the program in which you're interested. So hopefully that helps you out, NK. If not, send me an email, robin_day@bcit.ca, and I might be able to help you out a little more directly through email. Okay, so rather than holding up everybody, I am going to jump into the academic integrity part of the presentation tonight. And so I'll start out by just quickly running through the agenda, and this is the one and only time that I will read to you tonight. I will make that commitment early. I hate it when people read to me. I learned how to do that on my own a few years ago, so hopefully you will read the slides as we go along, because I don't always talk about or read out everything that's on the slides. So the agenda tonight, going to get into BCIT policy a little bit, what is and is not acceptable under policy, talk about why academic integrity matters to everyone, and a little bit of information on what happens if someone is caught in a cheating incident or some sort of academic integrity incident, some resources to find out a little bit more, and then some information on your rights as a student if you are accused of violating any of the academic integrity provisions in BCIT policy. I put the quote from Michelle Obama up on the slide. I'm not going to read it out to you. You've had plenty of time to read it, so we'll just skip to the next slide. Thank you, Maria. So first of all, a little bit of a poll. Which of these students are you? Would you put yourself in the category of someone who would never cheat? Maybe you get a little sloppy now and then, forget to cite your sources when you're quoting or should be quoting or referencing a source. Are you one of those people who maybe is an opportunistic cheater? You might cheat if there's an opportunity. The other group, well, of course, you don't cheat, but you help your friends. Still not a good thing. And then last but not least, of course I cheat. Playing by the rules is for losers. So give some thought to that. Throw it up in the chat if you like, but we're not asking people to truly answer this one. hopefully if you do answer, you're honest about it. I must admit, I'm probably a number two. Occasionally I do get sloppy and forget to cite sources. Mainly it's because, oh yeah, everybody has an excuse, right, Linda? Typically what it is I'm quickly doing my work, doing my research, typing away on my document. And even though I should cite a source, I forget to go back and do that. Well, the bad news for me is that's still potentially an academic integrity violation. It's not an incredibly serious one, sorry, Linda, in my ever so humble opinion, but it still is an academic integrity violation. So we'll talk in a second about why and what can be done about that. So first things, since we're talking about cheating, why do students cheat? Did a little bit of research on this earlier in the year. And this comes from a whole bunch of sources, many of them anecdotal. As you can see, the ones in blue are anecdotal. And the ones in red come from the Eberly Center, which is the Learning and Teaching Center at Carnegie Mellon University. And hopefully they are referenced in my sources at the end of the exercise, or I'm going to get an email from Linda later on tonight. So some of the things that students cite, yeah, mistakes happen over there on the left-hand side in blue. Heavy workload, lousy teaching. Thankfully, I've never been accused of that, but sometimes students will say, you know what, the instructor didn't tell me what the rules were, so I can't really be expected to live up to those rules. Some of the ones from Carnegie Mellon that I found interesting, and I've actually talked to the accounting, finance, and insurance faculty about most of these. One is high stakes assessments. If you've got an exam that's worth 50% of your final grade and you know that you're probably going to fail the course if you fail that exam, you're much more likely to cheat. Not that it's okay, but you are much more likely to cheat than if it's a 10% exam. And if you fail it, well, it might hurt your final grade and it might hurt your GPA, but it's not a huge issue. So those high stakes assessments can be a problem. Misunderstanding the rules. Part of that is why we're here tonight. We want to make sure everybody understands the rules and what is and is not okay. Lack of consequences. Well, some people might think there are no consequences to cheating at BCIT. But I can assure you that at least within the School of Business and Media, there are consequences and they are serious. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. You've had a chance to read the rest of the screen, so I will stop covering these at this point and we will skip to the next slide. Okay, so what does BCIT policy say? Well, basically, the work you submit must be your own. That is policy 5104, and that's really the most important clause in the entire policy, in my ever so humble opinion. There is also a reference to cheating and academic integrity in the Student Code of Conduct, which is non-academic integrity. And so that basically talks about helping other students or doing things that have an adverse effect on the performance of the institute. In other words, if you're helping someone to cover up cheating or helping them to cheat, well, you are still guilty of an infraction under BCIT policy. Now, BCIT's policies are all available online. If you simply go to Google and search for academic integrity policy BCIT, or better yet, put the BCIT up front, and then have a look at the hits that you get, chances are at least one of them will be BCIT's policy page. You can also find your way to it just by going through the website, but it's a lot more efficient to simply use a Google search. Next slide, please. There we go. So what are some of the specific prohibitions or things that are not allowed under BCIT policy? Well, Linda's already talked quite a bit about the first one, plagiarism. That is either copying or using someone else's work without providing appropriate credit, whether it's a citation for quoted work or a citation for paraphrased work, you need to include those citations in your work that you submit. Linda, one thing that often comes up is the question of citations for using information from a textbook. I frequently get students saying, it's in the text. Do I really have to cite that in my references? How would you answer that one, Linda?
Of course. It's still a book, a source. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we agree on that one. It's still a source. You are still submitting the ideas and or words of another person, and it is appropriate to give them credit. How would you feel if you were the other person and people were using your work and not giving you credit for it? Probably not very good. So it goes the other way as well. Next one, cheating in an examination. That's the one that most frequently students are concerned about. Falsifying or misrepresenting. So for example, misrepresenting would be lying about something. Maybe you did glance at the paper of the person next to you and the instructor saw you and they said, I saw you looking at that other person's paper, and you say, no, I didn't. Well, we know what we see, and basically a lot of times if it comes down to my word against yours, unfortunately for you, they're probably going to take my word for it before they will take yours. Falsifying or misrepresenting is another one that's fairly common. Academic advantage, trying to gain an advantage by some sort of actions. And the classic example is you don't want anybody else's report to be as good as yours. So you go over to the library and you check out every single book on the subject before anybody else has a chance. Well, that might have worked out in the old days when it was hard copy books. It's a little tougher with electronic resources, but it is still a violation of academic integrity. So for example, going and deleting all the links in your instructor's information that they provide, well, that can be a problem. Non-academic, already referenced this one earlier, but basically assisting someone with academic misconduct, so helping someone else to cheat, false information, false identification, and violation of institute policies in general. So again, you can follow the link or you could just do a Google search and find the information on academic, academic integrity policy at BCIT. So why do we care? Why all this fuss about academic integrity? Well, in business especially, but in any walk of life, integrity can make or break your career. If you are not seen as having integrity, people will not want to do business with you. And in my department, in accounting, finance, and insurance, integrity is paramount. And I refer you to Warren Buffett's quote on the right-hand side of the screen here, on the right-hand side of the slide. Look for three things. And if they don't have integrity, don't worry about the first two. Integrity and in an accounting profession, ethics are absolutely critical. They're a must. So the last point, sorry, a little too fast on the draw there, Maria. Program reputation. Think about this one. So if 50% of the people in a program manage to cheat their way through, or if even 10% manage to cheat their way through, do you think that employers are going to value that credential, which you have worked so hard to earn, as highly as if the credential has a reputation for producing students with academic integrity? In other words, if people are able to, to cheat their way through the program, your credential is going to be worth less than in a program where academic integrity is maintained. Okay, now we can switch to the next one. Thank you. So what might happen under both scenarios? Number one, if you're not caught. Number two, if you are caught. Well, if you're not caught, what happens next time? How are you going to get through the next course in which some of the material is based on that prerequisite knowledge, is based, for example, on you understanding, and I'll go to an accounting example, the accounting equation. If you don't understand that assets plus liabilities must equal owner's equity, wow, I screwed that up. If assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity, we won't tell the accountants about that one. If you don't know that and you get to the accounting 2 course, well, you're not going to succeed in that course. So that's not a good thing. What about the workplace? Your boss comes up to you and asks you to do something and you say, well, I don't know how to do that. Or worse yet, you try to get someone else to do it for you. Chances are you're not going to stay in that job for very long. And of course, there's your classmates as well, who in many cases will become your peers. They could become your potential employer at some point. Will they respect you? Will they report you as they should? And then the other side of the equation, of course, is what if you are caught? The different sanctions that could be imposed start at a warning and they continue right up to potential expulsion. And of course, the other thing that a lot of people don't think about is at the end of your program, you are more than likely going to be asking your instructors, one or more of them, for a reference. If a student who has an academic integrity violation comes to me and asks for a reference, they are going to get a very quick, very negative response. It will be a no in absolutely no uncertain terms. And the reason is not because I think I am God's gift to academic integrity. It is because if you do not exhibit integrity while you're going through the program, I don't want you as a fellow professional accountant, as a colleague, and I will not give you a reference for a job in the field. So that's just the way it is. Go ahead to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so which of these is not a violation of BCIT policy? Now, I know you haven't read the policy yet, but take a shot at it. Which of these do you think might not be a violation of BCIT policy? And I'll give you a few seconds. Go ahead and type your answers into the chat and we'll see how many people get this one right. Few people brave enough to say C. Okay, so C seems to be the most popular answer. Let's go through them. Allowing another student to see your homework. Well, that one's kind of iffy, but one of the items in policy is protection of your own work, which means you shouldn't be showing it to anyone else. The problem with allowing someone else to see your homework is you may not realize it, but they might go ahead and use it anyways, especially if you provide them with a copy. If you simply say, go ahead and have a look at my homework so that you can see how I did it, but please don't use it, well, that's not going to have an impact on me in the event that an academic integrity charge is laid against you or the other student. Because I will look at it and I will say, okay, we have one student who used copied material. We have another student who provided the copied material. I have no way of knowing what instructions you gave the other student when you gave them your homework. So I will treat you both pretty much the same way. It is a violation of academic integrity principles and rules, and you will likely be sanctioned along with the other student in the form of a 0 on that homework assignment. And I'll talk a little bit later about all the different things that happen as a result of that. Forgetting to cite a source. I'm probably going to see Linda's head bobbing up and down here. Of course, that's a violation of policy. We've already talked about that one. What about asking a student to borrow a pen during a quiz? Nobody said C, I don't think. Wait a minute, a whole bunch of people said C. Well, quite honestly, if I hear a student talking to another student doing it during a quiz, I can only assume that you're talking about the quiz. I don't know that you just said, could I please borrow a pen? So how do you handle that one? Well, what you do is you put your hand up, wait for the acknowledgement from the instructor. Sorry, but my pen just died or ran out of ink, or I dropped it on the floor and it rolled 3 rows down, whatever the case may be. May I borrow a pen from someone else? And 99 times out of 100, we're going to say, of course, go ahead. Or dig around in your pencil case or your backpack to get a pen. But it could very well end up in an academic integrity violation, simply because you are not supposed to talk to anyone about anything during an assessment, during a quiz or an exam. And yes, Enki, the lecturers or assistants typically can provide a pen, although I have been guilty on a few occasions of going to a student's exam without an extra pen in my pocket. So it does happen. What about selling research completed during a school project? Is that okay? Linda, have you run into this one at the library at all?
Not specifically this, because we don't often see the school projects at the end.
Okay. Yeah, and that one is a very strong, it depends. If that school project was completed with a group of other students, some of that work belongs to them, or a percentage of that work belongs to them. So you really can't go out and sell it. The best thing to do, once again, talk to your instructor and say, listen, you know that project I did for you last term, last year, last week, whenever it happens to be, there's a company interested in paying me for that research. Is that okay? Double check. It never hurts. And the faculty will likely say, hey, congratulations, that's fantastic, go ahead. Or they might say, well, we have to be concerned because there was some identifying information included in your research that can't be included in whatever you sell. So we as faculty are generally willing to help out in situations like that. We want to see our students succeed. So if you have an opportunity to sell some of your research, some of your work, talk to the faculty first, and then it will most likely get a green light and you'll be able to go ahead and do that. So are all of these violations? Well, all of them could be, but a couple of them are pretty benign. As long as you are careful, you likely won't end up in a lot of hot water. But as you can see, it's a complicated area. And we as faculty, as instructors, can't always tell what you were thinking or what you were talking about. So it's best to err on the side of caution. Next slide, please. Okay, here's another one. And I did see this one flash up on the screen. Somebody asked actually about, where did it go? Self-plagiarism, and that one's actually in here. So we'll cover that one when we get to the answers. So which of these is not a violation of BCIT policy? Once again, I'll ask you to type your answers in the chat and let's see how you make out. Everybody seems to agree that E is the correct answer. Let's go through them just because. So submitting the same report in 2 different courses without permission, surprisingly to many people, yes, that is a violation of policy. Effectively, you are plagiarizing yourself. I'm not sure if that's really possible, Linda, but we do require, and virtually all academic institutions are the same, we do require students to let us know if they are submitting the same report in 2 different courses. How does that relate to plagiarism, Linda? Is that just a different animal altogether, or is it seen as kind of the same area?
If you do use, refer to your report in another assignment, you do have to still give a citation for it. So it's sort of similar, but yes, it's still, yeah, you do need to do it properly and cite it, yeah. But this is a little bit different because it's like submitting the report and not telling maybe another instructor. So that's a little bit different than plagiarism.
It is, I agree there. And part of it is we want to know that you've done the work. And so if you took my course, my strategic planning course a couple of years ago, and you were that one person that's actually failed it, and then you come in and take the course again, and you submit the same work, when I'm reading through that work, if I start thinking, gee, this looks very familiar. I think Maria did this same assignment 2 years ago when I had her in my class. And no, I didn't have Maria in my class. I'm just picking on her as an example. I might remember that that's the same report. And really, I want Maria to learn from doing the report. And the fact that she didn't succeed in the same course the first time, well, I'd like her to do that report once again. In other situations where it's submitting the same report in 2 different courses, as always, best to ask for permission first. Just talk to the instructor and say, look, I did a report in my marketing course last term that was very, very similar. And I'm wondering if I can use the same report, maybe with some modifications. Again, many faculty will say, okay, that's fine. Some might want you to go and redo the report. Signing a fake doctor's note. This one's always fun. No, of course you can't do that. That might fall under the non-academic misconduct. You could probably also stick it under academic misconduct. Either way, it's not the right thing to do. So definitely a violation of policy. Having someone else sign you in at lecture. Well, misrepresentation was talked about in one of my first slides. Can't do that. It's just not the thing to do. Will anybody notice? Well, in many cases, we have checks and balances that we use to confirm those numbers when people are signing in at lecture. And especially in an online environment, you can take a screenshot of whomever is in the participant list or simply download the participant list and know who was there. So it's pretty easy to get caught doing that sort of thing. We can also do a head count and know that there are 50 people in the lecture and 51 people signed in. I need to work on my math. Anyways, 51 people signed in. Obviously, there's a problem, so we might ask everybody to bring out their IDs and double check, and that would be a problem. Uploading exam answers to a website. This one happens more often than people might think, especially working right now in an online environment. We get people uploading exam answers to sources like chegg.com, or even uploading the questions to a website like Chegg. Both of those actions are academic integrity violations. And many people don't realize it, but if we see this and we reach out to a website like Chegg, they will tell us who you are. And you will end up sitting down in my office talking about an academic integrity violation. And know that is not confidential or private information that you are giving to Chegg. As far as your identification goes, that is not a good enough defense. So don't do it is the short answer. Next slide, please. So I guess in summary on that one, yes, they are all violations. Okay, a few resources here. BCIT Policies, lots of those. The School of Business and Media Student Information Exchange Learning Hub site. I'm not sure if that's the current name of that Learning Hub site, but when you do get to orientation, if you are an incoming first-year student, we will provide the updated link to that, and it will automatically appear in your Learning Hub homepage as well. BCIT's Student Advocate, also very helpful in academic integrity cases. So can we have a look at the next slide, Maria? I've forgotten what's on it, or if there is a next slide.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, so I'll talk about this, this resource. So if you receive an email from your faculty, or if you're taken aside after a lab or lecture and the faculty says to you, the instructor says to you, I would like to have a meeting with you to talk about academic integrity or a potential cheating incident, or insert your own words here. You have a right in that meeting to have an advocate present with you. Now, that advocate could be a friend, it could be a family member, or it could be someone from the student advocate's office. In those cases, they will ask you to come and sit down with them, first of all, to talk about the incident and get your perspective on that incident. In some cases, they might say to you, you know what, you broke the rules. I'll come with you to the meeting, but you are going to be sanctioned, and I will try my best to minimize those sanctions. However, you can expect to lose on this one. So the people from the Student Advocate's office are great. They are there to help you. They are paid by the Student Association. They are not a BCIT employee. And I strongly encourage you to reach out and talk to them, not only if you have a problem with an academic integrity issue, but if there's anything going wrong or going on in relation to BCIT that you might need a little bit of help with. Don't be afraid to reach out to the Student Association for some help, and they will refer you to the Student Advocate's office if that is appropriate. The other avenue of appeal that you have, I'll just kind of go through the list here. Your first appeal is to your instructor. So you go back to the instructor, and in the meeting, for example, you tell them your side of the story. And if they say, sorry, but I'm going to sanction you, I don't believe you, well, you can appeal that to me. So you can send me an email and say, look, I've been accused of this academic integrity violation. I feel that I'm being treated unfairly, and I would like your help. Usually I'm aware in advance of any academic integrity cases, as are all of the other associate deans in the School of Business and Media. But every once in a while, one misses getting our attention. And if a student reaches out and says, I don't feel I'm being treated fairly, we will look at the circumstances, and in many cases, we will end up supporting the faculty simply because they've done a good job on documenting and ensuring that they have a solid case. But in some cases, as has happened a couple times to me this year, I will go back to the faculty and say, you know what, either you don't have sufficient information to sanction this student, or in some cases, you made a process error and you didn't treat the student fairly during the investigation, so you can't fairly sanction them. So those sorts of things do happen. Now, if I agree with the faculty and you still don't feel that you've been treated fairly, if you haven't already talked to the student advocate, go and talk to them. The last line of defense, the last appeal that you have, is an appeal to what is called the Decision Review Board. Now, the Decision Review Board is a BCIT body that looks very carefully at academic integrity cases to make sure that the student's been treated fairly, that the process has been followed properly, and they really do take the student's side in a lot of these cases if the student truly has not violated policy and or has not been treated fairly. So That one can be expensive. A lot of people end up hiring a lawyer when they start going to decision review boards, but it is an avenue of appeal that's open to you. So important to remember that. I'll close out, while my cat's giving me heck for not bringing him dinner yet, I'll close out by talking very quickly about the different sanctions one more time. So starts with a warning. That is the least painful sanction that you might receive. A 0 on the work, a failing grade in the course, possibly expulsion if it's a second or third offense. Those are all available to me as the associate dean. Faculty can give you a warning. They can give you a 0 or a reduced grade on work that is worth 25% or less, less than 25% of your final grade. So if it's an assignment worth 10%, totally up to the faculty. If it's worth more than 25%, which usually means exams, then it comes to me and I make the decision on what the sanction might be. So we do take a pretty close look at those things, and rest assured that it gets looked at multiple times, and we're usually pretty confident before we accuse a student of an academic integrity violation. Last thing, any academic integrity violation, whether it's a warning or a 0 on an exam or a fail in a course, gets recorded in the Office of Student Life, and it stays there. And the only time anyone looks at it is if there is another offense. So let's say you are warned for an offense in first year, and you have another offense in your degree program 2 or 3 years later. Well, the Office of Student Life will look and say, okay, there are 2 offenses here for this same student. At that point, they will contact me, and you and I will sit down and have a very serious heart-to-heart, and the consequences will be, to say the least, quite severe. So we do keep track. We do take a very serious approach to academic integrity in the School of Business and Media, and hopefully this will help you to stay out of any hot water down the road. I will stop now and let Maria start throwing those questions from the chat at me if there are any.
So your presentation, Robin, was so in depth that there are actually no questions in the chat. But I will get in case anyone does have questions at the moment, please feel free to leave them in the chat. If you have thought of any questions for Linda while hanging out with us, also please feel free to leave them in the chat.
So that's Maria's way of saying I bored everyone to sleep and they cannot possibly type because their heads are resting comfortably on their keyboards. Hopefully that's not true and it was the former, but hey, I'll go with that, Maria. Thank you.
No problem. Ooh, a very specific question. We like so specific questions. This one's about orientation day. So the My Communications tab is in the My Communications tab, looking through my course schedule, there are 2 different rooms I need to go to at the same time. What do? I am in FMGTF.
Okay, and actually, let me guess. SW9, 1840, and 1850. Is that correct, Selena? I'll guess that it is. I'll look at that. Actually, those 2 rooms, those are adjoining rooms, and there is a movable divider between them. So you can actually go into either one or the other. And yes, it is one large room because we have the divider moved. If you really want to, you could go in one side and out the other, and that way you could say that you've been in both rooms at the same time.
Perfect. Next question is for Linda is, do you recommend a resource for citation in the English language, such as essays, etc.?
Well, the APA style guides actually do cover, if you actually go into the APA book, and we do have many copies of the APA. It's quite a thick book, and it's got all kinds of information as well as how to cite. So citing is just a part of this book, and it actually does go into how more essay writing and how to do it so that it fits the APA style.
Perfect. And I'm just going to throw a link in the chat, which is just a link from the BCIT library, actually, with the different citation styles. Perfect. And then we have, are there books available to rent or just online material at the library? Our library is in person. It does exist. It is a physical room at BCIT campus.
Well, actually, well, now that we're hopefully opening up more, the library is open, has longer hours, and so and we are going to be open weekends on Saturday to start with, and also the APOD, which is our basement, which has many computers, and it will also be open. And we actually lend out books, but we don't rent the books. If you want to rent a book, that's usually done through the bookstore at a cost. The library doesn't charge for lending books.
Perfect. And then we're getting quite a few orientation day questions, it seems. So one more is that I'm scheduled for a class in the second half of the day. Is orientation just that? I'm in the new medium program. So one thing I will mention, since we are starting to get quite a few orientation day questions, is if you do have any concerns, you are actually more than welcome to reach out to your program head or instructor in question. So if there is a course that you can find, you can reach out to that instructor of that course and ask what's going on. If you have questions about orientation, I would reach out to your program head specifically. Linda and Robin know a lot, but if you do have program specific questions, I would recommend reaching out to your program head. So that goes to the wonderful Jovelyn and New Media, and also the RMGT COM situation we have going on by Team E.
Yeah, the orientation one, I do remember talking about that in the leadership team meeting, and I think there may be classes the second half of the day in the new media program. But absolutely, as Maria said, reach out to your program head and double check on that one. The RMGT 1A COM 1100 COM 3353, I believe COM 3353 is a language tutorial, and go to the COM 1100 class and they will explain the COM 3353 lab to you, because I think that is something that's done outside of regular classroom times. So double check with your COM instructor on that one.
For sure. And there's a question from Kristen regarding citations. So is that something we will learn in any of our BCIT classes, or is there resources through the library to learn how to cite properly? Such as, I'm assuming, more like tutoring options.
Yeah, you could go into the links for the APA citation, and it'll show you how to, it'll teach you how to cite. And the other thing is that many times the COM instructors, if you're taking a COM class, they will do more in-depth information about how to cite. But how citing is covered by the citation style guides that we have links to on this through this today's session.
Wonderful. And also just a question regarding, right now, room booking is unavailable. When do we expect that to change?
The room bookings in the library hopefully should start September 7th when things open up. And so the library hours are actually going to be, I should have mentioned it earlier, Monday till Thursday, we are going to be open. Oh, let me find it here. I think it's something like 8. Just a minute. I'll just look, find it. I did write it down in my notes. Okay, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 8. And then Fridays, 8 to 5. On Saturday, we're open 9:30 to 5, and Sundays we're closed. And as I mentioned earlier, the APOD in the basement, which has lots of computers to use, is going to be open 24/7. So that's the plan right now. But then, of course, be warned that COVID, you never know with COVID what's going to happen. So so feel free to please come in and use the library. We also look after the cards for the students. So just be aware that we still do that too. And so the question was about the room bookings. That should open up to September 7th.
Perfect. And then another question regarding downtown campus students. So since there is not a library on campus, what would be the easiest way for them to acquire library resources?
Well, we actually, for reference questions, you can go through the eBrarian or Ask Away or even just phone. If you need, they also, I think, look after the student cards at the downtown campus. And so you don't have to worry about that. You could still get your student cards, I believe, at the downtown campus. I think we have, shadows every day, and so it can be done quite easily. And as so many of our material is electronic now, whether it's journals or whether it's ebooks, there's majority of our material is available electronically. We do have some print still, and because not everything, believe it or not, is available in electronic format. So that you might have to come to the Burnaby campus sometimes, occasionally for those items.
Perfect, no problem. And thank you so much, Jovelyn, for mentioning that at the moment, the downtown campus is closed right now for student IDs, and they had to pick theirs up from Burnaby. So that's some awesome insight.
Oh.
Thank you so much. And then Amy C is asking about COVID measures in place in the library starting September. So like dividers, cleaning stations, and what that's going to look like.
Well, I think we're following the guidelines of the provincial government. And if they say that we can have, we don't need so much distancing, then that's what we'll follow. But if they say that, we must self-distance and have masks, then that'll be the case. I believe tomorrow, Bonnie Henry and Adrian Dix are going to make some have a presentation and talk about post-secondary education. I could be wrong, but I believe that's in the works tomorrow.
That is tomorrow. There's been some announcements made today, but the official statements will be done tomorrow. And then another question is it possible to reserve books in advance for pickup?
You could reserve a book if it's not a textbook or on reserve. Yes, you can do that. And you can go into our library website, into the library catalog, find the book and click on reserve. And then you can actually reserve it and pick it up at Burnaby, at the Burnaby campus. Yeah. And when the downtown campus opens, then you would be able to pick it up at the counter for registrations. But until then, I guess it's Burnaby campus.
Absolutely, no problem. And yes, it is sad that the downtown campus has no library, but it is a much smaller campus and it is very pretty if that makes up for it. And then also, I am going to post a link in the chat to all of BCIT's printing, to just BCIT printing services to answer one of the questions, but just a quick, if you could do a quick overview, Linda, again, of the printing services available in the library, if that's okay.
Oh, sure. We do have print stations in all 3 floors of the library, and we have the machine that dispenses the cards for the printing also. So then you put in you ask for a card, you put like your student card, you use that, and then you put in the cash, and then you put in the amount. You hit the correct buttons, and you could actually get money added to your student card, and then you use that card for printing. And there are printers on all 3 floors of the library, and throughout the campus, you could use the same card.
Absolutely, and I did put the link in the chat to the BCIT essay printing. So that one can be potentially a little more helpful if you have really massive printing jobs. Maybe you're a design student and you need a really like awkwardly shaped poster, or like maybe you need to print like a blueprint style thing. So they're an awesome resource when you need to do a bit more intense printing jobs.
Very much so. Yes, very much. Very, very good service.
For sure. And Jovelyn, yes, to answer that, it is available. Yes, BCIT essay printing. So that is not actually in the library, specifically at Burnaby campus. It is in kind of near the Great Hall. So kind of that middle area between near SE6, and downtown campus has its own printing services as well. Any other questions?
A quick comment on that one. For very simple, basic, good old-fashioned laser printer, black and white or black on white paper, there are printers adjacent or near to most of the computer labs on campus as well. Now, having said that, many of the computer labs are no more. And so since we're on a bring your own device model, I don't think that includes printers, but I believe once you're attached to the network, those printers should be available to you.
Perfect. Any other questions we can answer while we have these wonderful 2 resourceful humans here? Going once, going twice. And it looks like we've all answered all your questions. So thank you so much for joining us for our session tonight on academic library resources and academic integrity with Linda and Robin. If you have any further questions regarding either of these, please feel free to reach out to Linda or Robin. Their emails can be found on the BCIT website with a quick search. And if you do, again, as mentioned, if you have any questions regarding orientation, we do recommend reaching out to your program head. They may be on vacation still. It is August. They need a break. So they may answer you a little bit later and maybe potentially later this week when they're coming back. A lot of them are coming back this week. So I bid you all a wonderful rest of your night, and thank you so much for joining us today.